And also, this is how their dailies are looking like this morning. Beginning with a bold paper, Sakaja unleashes tax wrath on city hustlers is what is on the front page of the Standard this morning. It's all about the finance law. If you live or do business in Nairobi, prepare for more pain, as the county government has published its tax policies and they do not spare borders, mamambogas, motorists and traders, even preachers as well. And you can follow this story on page 4 of the Standard today. 39,000 shillings, that is the rent for a shop at city markets, increases to 39,000 shillings from 30,000 shillings, and for a large stall one will pay 3,250 more. Also we have 2,500, that is a license for a bouncing castle, which will cost that amount. Camel and horse riders will pay 600 shillings a day. Also we have 20,000 shillings cost of cremation at Langata Cemetery, goes up by 3,200 from 16,800 to now 20,000 for adults. Using the chapel will cost 500 shillings more, or will cost 500 shillings more. We have also 300 shillings. Daily parking fees will now be 300 shillings from 200 shillings for saloon cars. Also 10,000 shillings to be allowed to operate a plant nursery. You will need to cough up 10,000 shillings to be allowed to operate a plant nursery. You'll need to pay that particular amount. Also 1,000 shillings for Mama Karanga fish hawkers. They will part with 1,000 shillings every day as taxes there. And 10,000 shillings, a noise permit for a garden wedding goes up by 7,800 shillings from 2,200 shillings. And now that will be costing you 10,000 shillings if you're planning a wedding and you need a noise permit. That is what Sakaja has unleashed on the hustlers. You can follow the report inside the Standard this morning. Also, use or lose generation. This is what Nakada seems to suggest from the report. Drugs agency experts say youth are using drugs at an alarming rate and are asking families, teachers and government officials to pull together to rescue generation. You have the story on page 2 of the Standard this morning. More than half of the population have ever used a drug or substance of abuse in their lifetime. Also, only 43% of Kenyans had abstained from drug and substances of abuse in their lifetime. Alcohol and tobacco were the most widely used substances at 19% and 15%. There is an increased demand for cheaper and readily available alcoholic products, especially Chang'aa, that is 3.4%, and traditional brews, 3.1%. That story you can follow it on page 2 of the Standard this morning. And eyebrows raised over slow pace of Raila Ruto talks. Eyebrow raised over slow pace of Raila Ruto talks. This story continues on page 6 of the Standard. Quick, I had to choose either son or parent. A very telling story there of a man who had to make a very difficult choice between his son and his parents, who they were living together, and they were actually under the pile of the debris, and he went for the son and he lost their parents, or his parents there. That is the dilemma that a Moroccan had to go through in light of what has gone, or the tragedy that has devastated Morocco right now. You can follow the story on page 27 of the Standard this morning. A very heart-wrenching story there. And also remember, every Tuesday you have Financial Standard coming your way inside the Standard, and it's all about the EV hype or the real deal. It's all about electric vehicles. It is just hype or it's a real deal. You can follow the story inside the Standard as well. Big boys in routine win at World Cup. That is also tucked away on page 49, or page 40, I should say, of the Standard this morning. This is how it looks. Make sure you grab a copy of the Standard today. How Raila was caught flat-footed is a splash on the front page of the Daily Nation today. It's just harking back to 2022 elections, how the contest was. Right now that we are marking the first anniversary in the battle to succeed President Uhuru Kenyatta, the push and pull had moved from the campaign trenches to the hallowed sanctums of courtrooms and the planning desks of secretariats. And Mr. Odinga and his main challenger, Dr. Ruto, were squaring it out in dramatic fashion. You have the story inside the Daily Nation this morning. On the evening of August the 8th, just hours before polling stations opened for what would be one of the most fiercely fought presidential elections, a court sitting in Nairobi overturned an early decision to compel the electoral agency to use manual registers to identify voters. That and the very late move by a section of Azimio bigwigs to change party agents at 2 a.m. on election day may have just worked against Mr. Odinga. And this story continues on page 6, 7, and 8 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also, alcohol use addiction up in last 5 years. This is what Nakada report has. You can follow this story on page 12 of the Daily Nation this morning. Also, state invites bids to operate port assets. Excuse me, that is another story that you want to follow inside the Daily Nation. President had earlier opposed such plans, and this story is tucked away on page 10 of the Daily Nation this morning. Varsities demanding fees, says first years, according to what they had planned, that they will not be charged in the first years, at least when they're reporting to colleges. But sub-colleges are defying Machogo's directive. And you can follow the story on the back page of the Daily Nation this morning. People Daily, or the Star is up next. Addiction crisis. Teens hooked to animal medicine. Age of initiation to alcohol is 7, while introduction to cocaine is 16. That is a telling story of Nakada report there. It's been broken down for you as well. Drug and substance abuse crisis in Kenya. Alcohol, we have 2,511,763 men addicted to alcohol. We have 687,356 women. Bang, we have 475,770, and women 43,037. And you can read the rest of the numbers that have been broken down on how men and women have been addicted to some of the substances here that are listed on the front page of the Star. You have the full report on page 4 and 5, as I've mentioned, inside the Star this morning. Raila Ruto talks team receives 142 petitions. The National Dialogue Committee, spearheading the bipartisan talks between President William Ruto and Azimio leader Raila Odinga, has announced receiving 142 memoranda from members of the public, I should say. You have a story on page 6 of the Star this morning. That's an eye-popping figure there. 142 petitions. Will they really have that time to go through all this memoranda that has been submitted to the NDC? Also, State goes after magistrate in Rotich graft case. The 63 billion shillings Aror and Kima Rare Dam scam case against former Treasury CS Henry Rotich took a new twist, not a nosedive, on Monday, with the state going after the trial magistrate Eunice Nuto to quit hearing the matter. There was a brief standoff when the hearing resumed. On Monday with only one witness present. You can follow the story on page 7 of the Star this morning. Sakaja is warning of evacuations in El Nino Marshall Plan. Nairobi might be compelled to evacuate residents from areas likely to be hit by floods due to the anticipation of El Nino. Governor Johnson Sakaja has said, unveiling a Marshall Plan yesterday, he said some people will have to move to avoid loss of lives. And you have the story on page 20 of the Star this morning. Looking at the teaser on top here is all about tough rules. Bill proposes 10 million shillings for fine for rogue hiring agencies. And this is steamrolled by none other than Senator Tabitha Mutinda. You can follow the story on page 8 of the Star this morning. People Daily, this is how it looks. Reveal Kenya's drink problem is the splash crisis is brewing here. Children as young as grade 1 are being introduced to alcohol, according to new findings by Nakada that paint grim picture of growing addiction to a cocktail of drugs and substances. You have the story on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. 3.2% of primary school pupils use or abuse tobacco, compared to 2.6% who use or abuse alcohol. We have 3.8% of secondary school students use or abuse alcohol compared to 3.6% for prescription drugs. We have 42.4% of users of alcohol are addicted to its use. We have 47.4% of cannabis users who are addicted to the weed. 23.8% of public sector's workers who are using or abusing alcohol in 2021. You can follow this story inside the People Daily this morning. Bomber stocks fail to restart over 2022 poll audit feud. That story continues on page 5, and we'll wonder. And also, just trying to interrogate why these talks are failing or they're pushing the envelope. You can follow the story on page 5 of the People Daily this morning. Also, detectives, 12 charged in 1 billion shillings fake gold scam. You can follow the story on page 6 of the People Daily. Africa Union joins G20. What does this mean? That is the probing question. Move gives continent big voice in global politics. And you can follow the story on page 18 of the People Daily this morning. Nchi ya mchele na vileo. That is what is on the front page of Taifa Leo as a splash. Ya bainika walaghai huongeza dawa za mifugo kwenye vyakula vinavyosisimua walaji. And you can follow the story on page 2, how they spike their drinks as well with animal medicinal drugs, and it has been broken down for you here on the front page of Taifa Leo. The rest of the details also on the sidebar. Kesi dhidi ya Rotich sasa ya yumba, and Tundu Lissu achiliwa na polisi Tanzania. You can follow the story inside Taifa Leo. Let's see what is happening on the business front. And we have 60 billion shillings loan deposit gap piling pressure on SACCOs. That is what is on the front page of the Business Daily this morning. Distressed members continue to dip into their savings. Number of dormant members rose to 1.22 million in 2022. SACCOs borrowing are surging at a faster rate than that of deposits, leaving the savings and credit unions facing a negative wealth position and exposed to expensive debt to fund members or member lending. The gap between the loans and the deposit grew by a large margin to 60 billion shillings in 2022, indicating that members sought money from the cooperatives via loans and withdrawals at a faster pace than they made new savings in a period of economic challenges like high inflation. You have this story continuing on page 2 of the People Daily this morning. Also, mobile money payment hit 7-month high on accounts of course, growth. On page 4 is where you can follow this story. Also, state kicks off KPA assets lease in ambitious revenue drive. The Kenya Ports Authority has initiated plans to lease some of its key assets as part of an ambitious plan by the state to revitalize the maritime industry through public-private partnerships. You can follow the story on page 5. The tenders also, or if they're expressing the interest of you placing your tenders, you can read all about it inside the People Daily this one. And Kune and Nigel rivals or buy rivals for 8 billion shillings. That is the logistics fund there. And you can follow the story on page 6 of the People Daily this morning, hoping that I did do injustice to that name. In Rwanda, this is what is happening this morning. A month later, Sudanese students are considering careers in Rwanda. A month later, Sudanese students are considering careers in Rwanda. That seems to be the splash this morning. 16 students who registered for dentistry successfully completed and returned home. The story is tucked on page 4 of the New Times. Kagame meets U.S. congressional delegation. That is a story that you want to follow inside the People Daily this morning. You can see the family photo there. President Paul Kagame receiving U.S. Congressional Black Caucus CBC at Village Urugwiro on Monday. The delegation led by Representatives Lucy McBath discussed issues of global significance and future areas of collaboration. The delegation is in Rwanda after visiting Israel to learn more about the trilateral bonds between the United States, Israel, and Rwanda. That story, you can follow it inside the New Times. If you're waking up in Rwanda this morning, government to regulate traditional medicine practitioners and also Housing Authority on spot for Stall Huye Stadium renovation. Also that tucked away on page 3 of the New Times. If you're waking up in Rwanda this morning, in Tanzania, it's all about state of democracy. In a scathing address at the political party's council meeting yesterday, President Samia Suluhu Hassan expressed displeasure with the current abuse of Tanzania's democratic space, stating that freedom of expression and the right to hold political rallies have limitations. And this seems to be, of course, taking a step or responding to what was happening with Tundu Lissu, who didn't seek the requisite clearance from the state regarding holding these meetings. And this is what President Suluhu is raising hesitation with. You can follow the story on page 2 of The Citizen this morning. Kenya opens up about looming changes in the education sector, internet to drive EAC digital economy. Also with another story tucked away on page 3 of The Citizen. If you're waking up in Uganda this morning, NIC pays 73 billion shillings in insurance claims after major reforms. All that tucked away also inside The Citizen if you're waking up in Tanzania. The East African this week is holding this splash. Who will fund EA or the East African resilience agenda? That is a probing question. The challenge remains how and where to raise additional resources to implement the nationally determined contributions, which are at the heart of climate mitigation and building sustainability. You have a story on page 4 of the East African this week. And Burhan in renewed shuttle diplomacy for world support. On his third trip in a week, the Sudan military leader was in Doha, pledging peace as he seeks to isolate rivals. You have the story on page 9 of the East Africa this week. Regional forces stay extended amid protest in Congo. And EACRF will be staying longer even as the UN peacekeeping mission prepares to start leaving from December. You have a story on page 10 of the East African this week. Also, you can follow a story on the Outlook segment where Africa united over climate justice. Leaders want unmet commitment set in 2009 fulfilled. And you have the story tucked away on page 20 of East African, just giving you gritty details on what really happened during the Africa Climate Summit. Let's look at what we have on the front page of a China Daily. And this is what you're waking up to the front page of a China Daily this morning. Descendant of US general stay true to his legacy. President Xi's exchanges with Joseph Stilwell's grandson help boost China-US friendship. You can read all about it inside the China Daily. New global order evolves to turning point. And the video series sparks discussion over lost relics. You can follow that also inside the China Daily if you're waking up this morning, wherever you are, and you're interested in the news that is happening from that part of Asia. Moment of grief. This is a very telling picture there of women who are overcome by emotions on Sunday as volunteers recover the body of a family member from the rubble of collapsed homes in the village of Natala near Amizmiz in central Morocco. As of Monday evening, the deadly magnitude 6.8 earthquake which struck the country on Friday had killed nearly 2,500, according to Moroccan authorities. And this is tucked away on page 3 and 11 of the China Daily this morning. And we just saw also as well elsewhere in the Daily, in the Standard there, where there's a very telling story of a man who had to make a hard choice between his son, who was stuck in the rubble, his hand jutting out, and his parents also, who a wall fell over them and they were crying for help, but he had to make a choice between his parents and the son. A very heart-wrenching story there. And you can grab a copy of the China Daily for the details as well. City in Inner Mongolia launches key projects to fight desertification. That is what also you can read inside the China Daily. And this is the changing faces of William Ruto and his new style. And Winjiko now is lost for words as far as the regalia is concerned. One day is looking like that. Another day is looking that way. Another day is actually in a Maasai regalia. And another day is actually donning a suit. And Wanjiku, he says blankety blank. I don't really understand. I can see also Dan Manzo has a changing style as well. Maybe he's yeah, Mheshimiwa, you're following the counter suit way as well. You're coming closer. You're getting inspiration.
I'm the one who started this.
You're the one who started it.
Yes.
Good morning, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, and also Isaac Moura as well can tell us, because he seems to be a fashion. You can see the way he is. This is the inspiration.
No, I've always been like this. I think I've been the trendsetter, really. People should lay claim to credit for having said it. I mean, others follow, really.
Others follow. Yeah, you see, today he's in a fedora cap as well.
Yeah, this one is the new now. I want to be wearing this more.
So what is the change of...
I think it's better for the sun and also the light. It's a better way.
It's a better way. So the sun, you need to block away the sun.
And light also, light, so that I can see a little bit better.
But what do you think about that editor cartoon? So I don't know why we picked it away or we put it away. I just wanted to suggest with the new attire of the president, Isaac Moura. What do you think about it?
To be honest, I have not checked properly. Maybe somebody can go.
But it's there.
Somebody can have a first bite of the cherry. As I was
Dr. Jikal, good to see you. Good morning.
Morning.
Over the weekend, you saw also you in the sugar conference.
Yeah,
yes,
also the sugar conference.
Yes, and it's good to see you back. A lot of reforms have been put on the table. We wonder if they will be implemented.
That is the issue.
That is the issue.
Good intentions. Then we'll see the implementation.
The implementation. All right. Are you in any way also seeing your fundi to prepare a counter suit for you?
I'm okay. I just stay in the middle. So they leave and come and find you.
They make rounds over you or around you.
I saw some pictures of suits in the 50s. And they look like the most trendy ones today. So I said, they'll get me here.
They'll get you. So you keep them. All right. This is what is also on inside the Star this morning. And it's all about immigration. And it seems now Kindiki is working day and night to make sure that the printer is working. We had been told that the printing machines also were part of the problem that is causing delays of passports from the immigration. Now, some of the new measures are that we'll be having also the workers at the immigration department working on a 24-hour basis, right? I hope none of you has ever experienced challenges from the immigration department, so reforms are coming. But it seems when the problem comes is when now we actually have to bring reforms within these sectors. Knee-jerk reaction.
I think personally, the first time I applied for a passport, I was way back in 2003, and I couldn't get it, and I was just going to Tanzania, and I had to use the border temporary permit. So this issue goes way back, and there was somebody called Nyaga. I'm sure he's not there anymore, but he was demanding a bribe. So these things are not new.
He's demanding a bribe from you.
Yeah, so that I can get my passport. I was supposed to have traveled on being Sunday, and it was on a Friday. So, but then the passport, I got a notification or something like that it was ready by Monday. So I was wondering now, if I'm supposed to travel on Sunday. So I got it, yes, but because then I had to fast track it, they couldn't give me. And it was common. It was common even then to bribe so that you get your passport. But I don't think the crisis has been as big as it has been. There have been serious brokers who are demanding more than even the money used to process the visa itself. Then you keep on hearing broken machines. Oh, the cheaper passports are not available. I mean, it's been a whole, it's a money minting thing. If you can imagine, I think that one is giving the country 24 billion. So many Kenyans would want to travel outside. And you now know for sure Remittances are our highest income earner as a country, foreign exchange earner. Over $4 billion is being done. So you can see, that, or close to that, you can see why people, need to get, this passport. Actually, one of my friends was proudly, brandishing her passport on social media. That finally she got it. And even for the migrant workers, people who are going to give skilled labor out there, passport has been one of the greatest delays. So if it can be out within 2-3 days, as long as there's due diligence, it will really open up the economy of the country, because we have one of the best human resources in the world. Mm-hmm. And also the cost of processing, just to reduce that, needs to be synchronized. Issues to do with bad registration of birth certificates, again, very corrupt area there. That also needs to be streamlined. There are so many fake birth certificates around. And that is the primary document that also gives you, a leeway to get an ID and also a passport. I remember one day in Nairobi here, mm-hmm. at a certain restaurant, there was somebody who was telling me he's called Mutinda. Mm-hmm. Of course, I'm not very sure that he was from Makueni, but clearly looking at him, this is a Nigerian.
He didn't look like Mutinda.
Yeah, but that was a Nigerian. Because if you you can tell from the features, the way he was speaking, what kind of a Mutinda is this? In fact, I remember telling that story to President Uhuru Kenyatta at that point, because there are so many non-Kenyans who have got our ID and therefore passport. And of course, you also saw some video of somebody at the immigration department or the desk at the airport trying to harass somebody, who was supposed to go to Canada. So I am really happy for Professor Kithure Kindiki, the way he's tried to do his job, and of course Ambassador Julius Bitok, the PS, and we hope that this can be a cleanup, not just one-off exercise. We shall not have another backlog. It was strange to hear people saying that they are the ones who have the passwords to these so-called machines. And when you hear the cost of that machine is very expensive. Further to it, Debal, we need also to control the software that is managing the immigration visa, whatever, because it is not locally controlled. I mean, if we are a sovereign nation, we should be able to control that. Not Americans, for example, controlling our migration system because they sold us some kind of a software that can be switched off from America anytime. Those are the kind of things, and even just basic things. Even at the airport, you find the machine that is processing to see what kind of goods are coming in is donated by China, and it's properly written there, China aid, so they can tell how much we are importing. It's really a scam. Those are some of the things that show that we are not as sovereign as we think we are.
But if we have people who have gotten these passports illegally, and they're in the country, how then do we sort of do an audit of who is a real citizen or not? Because we have in different phases and the regimes and also ministers, some of them have passed through as well. There was a lot of sort of corruption that people were talking about regarding the immigration department and how people were buying citizenship and they were given, German passports. How then do we maybe hack back to those illegalities that were done before, so that we know what is the real population of the real Kenyan?
I think that one is now water under the bridge, because you see, if you have gotten a passport that is illegal, it becomes extremely hard to trace whether really you are Kenyan. But if you are then getting new generation kind of passport, because at some point we had to do so, it was a Matiang'i requirement, and then at that time they would have been able to see. But isn't the passport pegged to your birth certificate? Yeah, but there's a way, of course, they can do vetting when they are suspicious. That's what I'm asking. However, if it was done and the due process was followed, it can be extremely hard to detect. But also, maybe the point there, the value is that with corruption, anything goes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, Dr. Nyikao.
Well, look at the bigger picture, Dibal. It is passports, it is IDs, it is titles for land. All these are very important documents, and yet they are very difficult to get. So what we are seeing is a general corruption in the system. We've had situations where even title deeds, you're not so sure whether what you are holding is really a title deed. The sanctity of the title deeds is questionable. The same government who gave it through the process will tell you this one is not real. You went through the process. So the same you will have with passports. IDs, as you are saying, some people have IDs who are not Kenyans. Now, look at when we had examination, the certificates and the qualifications to get into university before Matiang'i and the late Magoha. There were many pupils and students who got very good passes, went to university, and when they cleaned the system, actually the admissions in the universities went down, campuses were closed. So you are concerned what is the real population of Kenya. It's not just in passports, it's virtually in everything. What is the true data we have in the country? You remember when the Matiang'i and Magoha cleaned, the number of A's for students passing with A's dropped dramatically. They had to close some campuses. Now, so the same thing you are asking, where we don't have to go into the details and say who is who. So we may also think that probably our population is not as big as we think. It is a general concern on how we handle our affairs as a country. Right. I think that's what I would say.
Okay. Let's hear from Dan Mazo. I can see him. I think he needs some cup of coffee and some tea as well. He's yawning prodigiously this morning. Or is still the system is still booting up.
you know, this is a story of corruption in the country. It has been very historical, and there's a way the people in that system have managed to be ahead of everyone in terms of corruption. And in terms of making the document scarce, probably that the machines have not really broken down. And then it takes us back into budgeted corruption. You know, you make a budget as a country through parliament, and then inside that budget is already a little bit of corruption, you know, already hidden in it. Auditor generals may not even be able to pick it out. So we really need to bring to speed the fight against corruption. There are very many Kenyans willing to give evidence against corrupt individuals, but their lives are at risk. You really have to do the witness protection program much higher, and then the courts dealing with corruption to be boosted, and at the same time ESCC to be properly funded and devolved to the counties. And also strengthened in an area like this, very sensitive, passports. Security documents. It's a very serious security document. And I'm sure the security features should make sure that this document is never faked and is never given to the wrong people. That's where there are birth certificates, the first document of registration, and then the national identity cards, and then the passports. Some people get their passports even when they are younger, before they attain the age of 18. And that must be synchronized with the birth certificates. But most important, we must come up with a system to make sure that the corruption deals going on in this department are no longer there. One of it is cameras, so that there is transparency in every bit of it in the immigration department. And again, also harassing of tourists coming to the country, immigration officials acting beyond their powers, beyond the law, so that a single individual can make an administrative decision which affects other people adversely. I think the whole department needs to be overhauled, need to be counter-checked, so that it's very important, in terms of tourism into the country and in terms of our Kenyans going out there to look for jobs and bringing back money home.
Thank you. Very interesting editorial cartoon as well inside the People Daily, just on the split there, if you just may have it in full, so that Dr. Nyikal can tell us. He has been attending this particular forum in Western region regarding the just reviving of a sugar industry. And you can see the editorial cartoon that is in the People Daily this morning. We have the local sugar industry there in the ICU, and you can see all manner of pipes and IVs jutting from each way. And the person seems unconsciously saying, or consciously, nothing sweet in that promise. And we have the politicians and the sugar importers saying, as long as I'm here, you will survive. And you can see how he has such a rotund belly as well, and money jutting out from the briefcases. Just the corruption that we talk from the industry as it is anyway. But we hope that something good will come from that particular forum, and some of the cries that the farmers and also the sugar industry players have been raising as concern within that sector will actually see immediate action being put forward. Right. Now, the National Dialogue team has yet again postponed its engagement in what they termed as giving the secretary time to go through the memorandum submitted during the public participation exercise that lapsed on Friday. And with the team remaining with less than 50 days to conclude their talks and submit the report, they remain hopeful to beat the deadline. Our reporter Grace Nyanga starts us off.
11 days after Parliament paved way for the National Dialogue by adopting the Talks Committee co-chaired by Wiper Party boss Kalonzo Musyoka and National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah, the real talks are yet to begin. Monday, Kalonzo announced that they will take another week break to pave way for the Technical Committee to go through memoranda received during the public participation exercise.
The memoranda, as already pointed out, 142 of them, need to be looked at by the Technical Committee. And you find that some of them may be dealing with those agenda items to which you refer. So let's give the committee work until Monday.
The exercise to receive public views on the 5 thematic areas that form the agenda for dialogue started a week ago, where Kenyans and stakeholders were given an opportunity to send their submissions to the Technical Committee. According to the team, they received a total of 142 memorandums from both individuals and groups. 5 were physically dropped at the Bomas of Kenya, whereas 29 were hand-delivered to the Secretariat of the Dialogue Committee. On the other hand, 121 memorandums were received via email, while none was received via post. The petitioners will not be required to publicly defend their submissions. On the contrary, the technical team, led by former Ndaragwa Member of Parliament Jeremiah Kioni and lawyer Muthomi Thankolu, will distill the memorandums and give a report and recommendations to the dialogue team next week.
We don't want the country to get the feeling that we meet to adjourn every time. As you can see, dealing with 142 memoranda is quite a task. And we, immediately after this, the technical committees will go into session and do as much as they can, so that by the time we meet on Monday, it will be heavy engagement.
And we'll be coming back here on Monday to receive the reports of the various memoranda and then be able to make a decision on the way forward.
Some of the memoranda received are from human rights group Amnesty International that wrote to the committee with a focus on the pressing issue of unlawful use of lethal police force, extrajudicial executions, and enforced disappearances. And with a deadline of 60 days, the team says they're still on the timeline and a report will be tabled once the 60 days lapse. Both sides being committal in having the talks work and quell the temperatures between the government and the opposition.
When we meet on Monday, it will be serious engagement. So we're of course aware of the time limit, very much aware. Thank you.
Grace Nga, KTN News, Nairobi.
Azimio One Kenya Alliance leader Raila Odinga attended the Lake Region Governors Consultative Forum in Kisumu. The meeting mainly discussed the state of devolution and development around the Lake Region Economic Bloc. The current El Raib chair, who is also the Kisumu governor, that is Anyang' Nyong'o, said the leaders are keen on economic revival in the region. Other governors in attendance included Simbarati of Kisii, Fernandez Baraza of Kakamega, Siaya Governor James Orengo, Gladys Wanga of Homa Bay, Ochilo Ayako of Migori, Willibert Otichilo, that is Wilberforce Otichilo of Vihiga, and Busia Governor Paul Otuoma.
We are in Azimio, and we have the vision bearer, who has always been the father of change and progress in the nation. And there's no other party, no other coalition that can do it better than Azimio. So no wind can blow us apart. No earthquake can shake our foundation. And therefore, rest assured that though that be the case, it does not disturb us at all. And secondly, we did definitely talk about a lot of economic issues, transportation on the lake, how we can link our ports and beaches, like used to happen the East African Community Days, what investments are needed, investment in agriculture, particular research, and the access to capital. And I think those are pertinent issues that will perhaps come out in a communique eventually as a report of this meeting.
Now, construction of the stalled multi-billion shillings dam or dams in the Rift region is set to resume before the end of this year. Officials from Ministry of Water have visited the 34 billion shillings Itare Dam in Nakuru, which stalled in 2019. The team headed by Water PS Dr. Paul Rono is set to make a similar visit to the controversial Aror and Kimmerer dams this week. The project stalled in 2019 amid claims of graft and political interference, as Ken Kajohi reports.
After stalling for exactly 4 years, a ray of hope has shone on the Itare Dam project after officials from the Water Ministry toured the site in Kureso in Nakuru County. Water Principal Secretary Dr. Paul Rono and his regional development counterpart Dr. Idris Dakota were here to assess progress of the project, which stalled in 2019.
The dam will have a capacity of 28 billion cubic meters of water in terms of capacity, with a daily extraction of 100,000 cubic meters. This project, as you are aware, that it stalled for some time, but in terms of progress, already 27% of the work had been done.
The officials revealed that they were here on President William Ruto's instructions, with a plan to resume construction of the project not later than December this year.
This dam, in terms of construction, will resume very soon, within the course of the year. So we are here to ascertain the progress so that we can make a decision on when the dam will start.
The road accessing Itare Dam all the way from Molo will actually be upgraded to bitumen. Other benefits, that is in terms of employment, also the issue of compensation, I know we will be able to streamline.
Apart from Itare Dam, the government is also working on modalities of ensuring construction of the controversial Italian-funded Aror and Kimmerer dams in North Rift kicks off.
Itare, Aror and Kimmerer, they are part of the 100 mega dams that the president promised to deliver to Kenyans. So the 3 dams happen to be low-hanging fruits. That's why we have started with this.
Small issues to do with land compensation, which we'll also review in our progress to see how we can engage the locals with the MPs and the team here, so that individuals who feel that they have not been compensated will do an assessment so that we can compensate.
The Italian construction company undertaking the project, CMC Di Ravenna, fell bankrupt in 2019 and had some of their equipment auctioned and others destroyed by weather elements and vandalism.
So anybody found to have vandalized, destroyed or damaged or sabotaged water infrastructure, like this one we have done in Itare Dam, will meet the full force of the law. I'm aware there are 36 individuals who have written statements.
Resumption of the project comes 6 months after President William Ruto held talks with his Italian counterpart Sergio Mattarella in Nairobi. Ken Gashuhi, KTN News.
And that is the latest development there. And also you need to read about also how the Director of Public Prosecution is asking magistrate to recuse itself from Rotich case. This is on page 2 of the People Daily this morning, where it says the Director of Public Prosecution's DPP now wants Magistrate Eunice Nyutu to recuse herself from hearing the 63 billion shillings Aror and Kimmerer Dams case, which involves former Treasury Cabinet Secretary Henry Rotich. When the matter comes up, or when it came up for hearing yesterday afternoon, the DPP, through State Prosecutor Geoffrey Obiri, made an oral application to have the magistrate disqualify herself from handling the case. And we have the story continuing on page 2. Denmas, what do you think about this latest development in light of what the revival of the dams, as well as the court proceeding continues as well on the Aror, and we have the recusal now of the magistrate that the DPP is seeking? Why should we have no information, but maybe you can tell us why they are seeking a recusal?
You know the story of Arua and Chimarel Dam is a big investigation, and it's very political, especially now that the people in power today were the ones who had been previously accused, and there were a lot of documentation to link them to, you know, malpractices in terms of that particular dam. And I've had my own share of problems with Thwake Dam in Makueni, whereby when you delay or stall a little bit, and Makueni stalled when Ruto came to power, and some 5 billion shillings had been removed from the project, and when they failed to pay the subcontractors and they failed to pay the workers, there was a closure. And immediately, just as you can see in the case of Itare, vandalism came in, people went to steal things there, cement, metal, and all that iron bars, and that brings, increases the cost of the project. And some people also made fraudulent claims, in court, and the court matters seems not to address very scientific things like, cost of excavation. 1 + 1 is 2, not 11. And therefore, there's a lot of corruption going on in the dams. In terms of recusal, for you to ask a judge or magistrate to recuse yourselves, you must show and demonstrate proper conflict of interest between that judge or magistrate and the person who is being accused. In this case, I think the DPP is playing politics. I don't think there is sufficient ground, for that particular magistrate to recuse herself. And the best thing the magistrate can do is to refuse to recuse herself, because there's a way you deal with a magistrate or a judge if you have a complaint against them. There's a way you file your case against the Judicial Service Commission, and then each party will be given an opportunity to defend themselves or to explain their case. So when it comes to dealing with judicial officers, I think there should not be, unless there's sufficient evidence, they should not be, pushed around. The independence of a judge or a judicial officer or a magistrate cannot be taken away from that particular judge or magistrate. And therefore, the magistrate should stay firm unless she has reasons to believe she should also recuse herself. And ordinarily, when there is such situation, when there is conflict of interest, or there is a matter which really warrants recusal, ordinarily the judges or magistrates move that motion themselves. And they say, for 1 or 2, 3 reasons, I'm unable to proceed to this matter. And the matter is given to another judicial officer. So I think DPP should know that we are aware of the story and the corruption in these dams and the political push to save some of the characters who have stolen money in these processes. And the Kenyans should stand very firm, and those giving witnesses should stand very firm, so that whoever has taken from these dams, taken away monies, first of all, they should be given an opportunity to return that money and to mitigate the cases. If not so, then they should face jail. And there should be no favor, to certain individuals who are very well known to have stolen from public coffers.
So is it Rotich who's been, because I think the case is centering around him very much. We can see other culprits. We had the PS as well. He was exonerated. Now he's the governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. Is it Rotich so far? Isaac Maura?
I think Daryl Manzo should be one of the witnesses. He seems to know a little bit more than many people about Thwake Dam. That's on a light touch. Well, let's wait and see. I am not very sure whether we can say with certainty that Henry Rotich is culpable, because Kamau Thuge was also removed on that basis. In fact, one of the accusations against Kamau Thuge then was the fact that the country had borrowed a lot, which was quite strange anyway. But I really want to say, let there be evidence about this whole issue of Rocky Morel, from where we sit, at some point that issue was actually used politically to fight the then Deputy President William Ruto and his allies. And so therefore, it can only be through proper investigations, proper evidence that you can say with certainty that some monies were misappropriated. But otherwise, if it is just a sensational story because it was then it's just part of the political witch hunt that really happened, to besmirch the character of President Ruto and also the allies around that time. Of course, it has had a very serious toll on Henry Rotich himself because it is the basis upon which he lost his plumb position as the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury. And of course, he's been in limbo since that time. A young man who really was quite junior, who was a technical, assistant to President Uhuru Kenyatta when he was Minister for Finance. And he was made, Cabinet Secretary. In fact, Kamau Duge was his peers, but he was quite junior to Kamau Duge in National Treasury, which was quite a misnomer. Let's see what comes out of it. I hope if he's innocent, then he should be let off the hook. But if there's any evidence of misappropriation, of course, the due process should follow, because that can only be ascertained by a competent, court of law. And I really hope and believe that it's not just going to be another circus. If money was lost, then somebody misappropriated the money. But if it is political witch hunt, then again, that is something that also needs to come out very clearly.
So the revival of these dams also seems to come at a time when we're in dire need of dams. Seems to be coming way too late when we're talking about revival and El Nino, which is here. Dr. Nikal.
You see, as I always say, look at the bigger picture and look at the history. When did the history of these dams, all of them, Kimerer, Aror, and so on? It actually started soon after the 2013 election. It started when we actually devolved function, with the devolution, and particularly in the Ministry of Water. I remember that a lot of money actually remained in the Ministry of Water, and very little at the national level, and very little went to the counties. And I remember actually governors, and just some governors, not all, were actually called to the ministry to where these dams were distributed, and you didn't see any clear pattern of where the dams should go. And so it was started that way. So a lot of money then was spent, which would have gone to the counties to actually help with supporting the water supply and so on. The idea was that the large dams that will be used for irrigation and all you use for water, domestic water supply at the same time, and even power generation, was economically a good idea. But I believe that they were not properly implemented, and there were ill motives, and money was lost. That money was lost, in my mind, there's no doubt. We saw pictures of work attempts to get the work done. You saw big tractors there. There were court cases here and abroad. So definitely money was lost, in my mind. Then we go to court where Rotich is in court. His former PS, they were together in court. Something happened, and the PS actually later on turned to be a witness, a state witness. And as you said, has moved on now to be the governor of Central Bank. Now, take that together with what has happened with the many cases that were just before the elections. A lot of them were actually dropped. And now you have a DPP, and the same the same we saw with the other DPP. A lot of cases, the DPP suddenly decided that they are dropping these cases. This particular DPP is unhappy with the presiding officer and saying, now you should recuse yourself. To me, it looks suspicious, and therefore it gives me the impression that we are not going to have a proper process, and this money will be lost. Well, that some are going on, you are just afraid that we have lost so much money in dams. The cases are still going on. we are not even sure the cases will be concluded. There are indications that the cases may be dropped altogether from what we are seeing going in the past, and this is going on. So you get worried. In this country, when we start these noble projects, which are supposed to benefit the people, do we really mean to implement it? The people that implement it, do they mean well for the people, or they see them as an opportunity to actually enrich themselves and then later on find the best ways you can get off it, and even those who are concerned, how we can get them off? Because if you're involved in a thing like this, then the people who are actually in charge of them, the sooner they are off it, the better, because then the matter ends. So me, I'm suspicious. I feel bad that things that should have helped the people didn't help the people. The cases are dragging on. We are now think the judges should recuse themselves. It's not a good show, Debal.
Thank you.
In my view.
All right, not a good show. Of course, that is a developing story. We'll still wait to see how that will pan out as well. We want to take a short break right now. When we circle back, we buckle down to discussions as well, just looking at what is happening and stalling the bipartisan talks. 142 memorandums is what they have received right now. And also they are pinched for time to actually come through all that memorandum and deliver their report. So we want to look at that and also delicately follow the health bill as well. Dr. Nyikal sits in the health committee, so he stands on a good state to tell us what is really happening on that particular bill that has also sparked a lot of debate as well. There is the blank TEP levy that also is bound to affect the mobile and other gadgets. That is bound to go up if this new tax also is imposed. We see also Sakaja is on it again as far as looking at the taxes and the levies in the city is concerned. That is what is on the front page of the Standard this morning. If you're a preacher as well, unahubiri neno la Bwana pia, you'll be charged 1,000 shillings if you're using G&G Gardens and other premises and Aga Khan Walk as well. So beware. We'll take a short break.